Cana, club sabroso, programas que mueve la audiencia no engaña. Punta Cana Hits 90.3, en la radio, en la web, síguenos a donde estés. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok y YouTube. Somos los líderes en cada esquina, en cada club. Punta Cana Hits, conéctate, vive por ti. 90.3, los más activos en las redes y en tu radio, sí. ¡Perra Valores! Sí. Punta Cana Hits, conéctate, vive por ti. 90.3, los más activos en las redes y en tu radio, sí.
Hi everybody, it's your boy Mario Fama RD, aka Jo Blanco, pero no soy banco. And yes, it's time. We're finally launching the Mario Fama RD podcast. Now, what's going to be different about this podcast? Well, we're going to take our rose-colored glasses off. We're going to put our real glasses on. And we're going to talk about the hard-hitting subjects that nobody talks about being an expat here in the Dominican Republic and in Latin America in general. We're going to talk about law. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about lifestyles, and everything the Dominican Republic has to offer. The good, the bad, the ugly. Kind of like the Clint Eastwood Spaghetti Western, but here in the Dominican Republic. If you have any questions, we'll answer them for you. We're going to talk about everything that relates to being an expat, not just in Punta Cana, but Santo Domingo, Santiago, the North Coast, the East Coast, West Side, even the West Coast. Everywhere. And if you want to be a patrocinador and have your logos up here and sponsor us, then let me know.
Hello, my fellow Patagonians, and welcome to the special edition of Election Day Mario Fama RD podcast. Welcome back, everybody. I don't even know what number podcast this is, but here we are. But first, as usual, before we get started, let's give a big shout out to our sponsors. Thank you for sponsoring the show. We've got Samana Group, Grupo Samana, right there. Great stuff in Samana. They're building an entire city there. And we also have Gold Reef Properties with properties all over Bávaro and in Playa Nueva Romana. So any more information, check out in our YouTube. We have the links to their pages, to our sponsors. Thank you so much. And today, I'm joined by two very special guests, and they're also my co-workers. I call them Mark Mac, or Mike Mac, because one's Mike and one's Mark, and I always get them confused because they really look alike. Hi, guys.
Do we look that much alike? I don't think we look that much alike.
No, just the names.
He's got hair.
Oh, you know what? Put some hair up, and that's
All
it.
right.
We're all twins.
We need a razor. I got one in the house. That's it. We're gonna
Let's go. Take it off.
Listen,
we all need
it's two,
three.
it's
of
two
them. Yep.
versus one. You've lost. That's it. Free barbershop, buddy. But thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. And today we have a special episode because we're both actually, these are my coworkers, and we work in real estate, right? So today is the much anticipated elections in the United States of America. Now, the reason we talk about it on the show, even though the show is generally about Dominican Republic, is because it affects us. The United States and the Dominican Republic are super, like connected, right? Whether people choose to like it, accept it or not. I mean, last week they had a Dominicanos for Trump sign in the bridge in Santo Domingo. Mm-hmm. So that goes to show you, and even during the pandemic, I saw Trump billboards. They used to have them in Lope de Vega and Santo Domingo right there in front of Sirena Market. So the countries, and I don't know if you guys know, but the largest population of Dominicans outside of Greater Santo Domingo, right? Not the Distrito Nacional, but Greater Santo Domingo is New York City, then Santiago, then everywhere else. So that's why when people ask me, what are you? So, bro, I'm Dominican. I'm from New York, Providence. Because it is true. We have so many. New York, you go to New York, it's like Villamella. Like, you don't even know that you've left. There are people that can live there their whole lives, and it feels like they're still in DR. So it's kind of, we're very, very, very connected. But with that being said, I think that some of us are not going to be sleeping, and I know I'm definitely going to be drinking tonight because the elections affect us. Now, as an American, I woke up this morning feeling like beer bacon bullets, baby, and some napalm in the morning. Woo! Get it done. I'm glad that it's finally here because in real estate here, we've been kind of at a pause for the last couple of months.
Yep.
The last 2 months between Dominicans, between the Reforma Fiscal, everybody froze up. When that Reforma Fiscal came out, the economy here went to poopy snappy, right? And then we have the wait for the elections in the United States, because a lot of what happens to the United States is going to affect us here directly, economy-wise. I have clients that reach out to me, and if they're on the left, they're like, if the right wins, I'm leaving America. And if they're on the right, if the left wins, I'm leaving America. Y'all welcome here. We'll sell you some property. You can come over here. We got the beach. We got some bars. Y'all good to go. Whichever side. Both of you. Come on down, both of you.
Yeah, we want both groups. We want both groups to come down. Yep.
That's why I it's too late now, but it should have been Al Bundy for president. Then we get everybody down here.
That's right. Then we
Al
get 'em all.
Bundy.
That's
Al
right.
Bundy's the president. We're all leaving. Woo! Punta Cana sold out. We're closed, guys. There's nothing left here. But it's going to be very interesting right now because I think we've been in a hole since we all work together. It's like we have a lot of clients that are looking, but they're not pulling the trigger because they're waiting to see what happens to the U.S. economy. I think no matter what, we talk about this in the office as well, whether you're on the right or the left, I think the main central focus, right, once you remove certain topics, certain issues that are like non-negotiables for each side, right? Once you remove those topics, down the middle, a lot of people are voting, I think, now with their wallets. We talked about that. The
Absolutely.
economy's crap in the United States.
right.
It went from like pandemic to like June of 2022. It was like, it's raining money. Woo.
Yeah.
Everybody was great. People here were buying. I could have put a cardboard box on the beach here, and people would have bought it for like $200,000. It was like that, and then everything. It's just, what goes up, todo que se sube debe caer. Everything that goes up must come down. And we're in that down period right now, and what happens tonight is going to determine who feels things went right and who feels things went wrong. And either way, I think, and we're also, it just coincides with the beginning of the busy season here in real estate, I think we're going to see a better market right now because this year has been a holding pattern. And I think, election years are like that. Election years usually tend to be in holding patterns. Yeah. But, I mean, you've seen it. How have your clients been reacting?
Well, differently. And what we spoke this morning about is the expat turnover, right? So I like how you said expat turnover. And then when we're talking about the expat turnover, the elections will also bring some people back to the United States, right? So it's not only a buyer's market, but it's also a seller's market. So some people will want to sell their property and go back to the States depending on who's going to win, right? Be it the Dems, be it the Republicans. Someone's going to sell their property. It means that someone will buy this property, right? So if people are moving out from the States, some people will go back to the States. And that's what I liked about the turnover, and that's what I think, and that's what I see right now. So a lot of people are planning to sell as well, right? So the market is going to be full of resales as well after the election goes down. So that's what I think. I don't know what you think about it, Mark, but that's what I see right now. It's not only the buyers, the sellers as well.
Sure. I think that federal elections in the States are not as important as federal elections in other countries, okay? But one thing that's so important about federal elections is the economy, like you said. And this year, we just feel it. Americans feel it more than any other election is just the economy, or at least any other election since I've been voting, okay? Which is not that long, but I've been voting for a while. And so a lot of the things that we talk about for the federal election is the president for this or against this or whatever. It's really things that should be decided on the state level, okay? But
Agreed.
You agree. But the economy, that is mostly controlled by the federal government. Tariffs, import taxes, things like that.
Yeah.
That's the federal government. And so for this election, depending on who you want to vote for, they're going to very much so affect that. They're going to very much so affect that. They're going to affect the strength of the dollar as well.
I agree. And I think, people don't realize, like, why are people expats? People are expats because certain things in our home countries are not good, right? It's the same reason why people leave here to the places that we consider not good because they consider it better for them.
Sure.
It's kind of super weird. People are dying to leave some of these countries. I mean, physically dying, right? They're losing their lives to leave. And we're coming here because we don't like it there. It's a weird, like, I don't even know what to call it, conundrum. I don't know, a paradox. I don't know what
Well, I mean, I know some people that are living out in like El Sabo, okay, here in the Dominican Republic, and they're risking everything to get to America, And it is a weird paradox, or what's the other word? Paradox, basically. And then we want to be here because there's things in America that we don't like,
You know what I found?
Yes and no. There's differences, right? People, the expats, be it from America, be it from Canada, be it from Europe, they come here because they have funds to do so, right? You're not going to come here and you're going to get some social support, or you're going to be living in a luxury hotel if you cross illegally, right? That's what's happening right now in New York City, at least.
Right.
And
California.
Not to mention California.
And
So
Texas,
I think the reasons...
By the way, California's for sale. We're willing to give it away for 2 plátano fritos. Any country wants it, you guys can have it.
So I think the reasons are different, for people moving out of here and people moving in to
Right,
here, right?
for sure,
And how
for
many
sure.
stories you hear about people laundering money into this country, right?
Yeah.
In this country, sorry.
So you don't think that people from Europe move here because they don't like things about their country? They just move here because it's more fun?
Well, yeah, I think so. It's fun and it's sunny, right? And some people, for different reasons, they would come here. And as we mentioned and we talk about it, like it's the law. The law here exists. A lot of people think that it doesn't, but law
It
here
doesn't
exists.
seem to a
Now,
lot.
the enforcement of that law and repercussions of breaking the law, now that's a different story. That's what I see, and that's what I think some people or groups of people are looking in this country for, right? And that's why it gives them a little bit more liberty to do some things they should not do or will not do in their own countries.
I think it's interesting what you're saying because, again, I'm European, but I don't consider myself in the sense European because I haven't lived in Europe since I was 8 years old. So what do I know, right? But from what I understand, and this is what is happening in the U.S., at least in the last couple of years, and definitely I'll tell you now an example of that in Canada, right? In Europe, they're very stringent. It's really weird. They're not stringent with the illegal, people, but they're stringent with their own people. The laws are really, like I heard, are very, very strict. So I think people are leaving because the high taxes, even though they don't realize they're getting a lot for their high taxes, it's all perspective. And I'm going to tell you guys something about that. Everything has to do with perspective of where you're coming from and how you see things. Two different people could see two different things, right? And differently. The same thing differently, right? What happens is I think that people coming from Europe and places like that, they're looking for more freedom. From what I heard, Europe has so many stringent laws. Now, as Americans, we see things one way, but I can tell you that like Canada, interesting happened the other day. I shared a video of Neil, what's his name? Neil deGrasse?
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's a science. He's
The
talking about
science
science.
guy, yeah.
And my friends on Facebook that are from Canada were like, what did you post? I can't see it. And another time there was a storm coming to the Dominican Republic, and I shared a news report about a storm, and they can't see it. There's a thing that pops up that the government blocks certain
In
media.
Canada.
Yes.
Yeah,
In
Canada's
Canada.
like a socialist. Canada's full like on its way to North Korea, from what I saw when it comes to freedom. I mean, you can't listen. It literally says, I have to show you. The Canadian government
you, I
doesn't.
believe you.
If the Canadian government does not want you to see a 1 minute clip about the universe and galaxies or a storm. We're talking about a news. I mean, I at that point, I'm all out of stuff to say to you.
And I confirm that because, my parents are living in Canada. So whenever my mom tries to open my links, because my account is in the Dominican Republic, she cannot see the links. And she's like, okay, can you send me, a video or a picture? Definitely there's some kind of a filtering going on of content, right? And without even, you remember the pandemic, right? And what happened to the truckers?
Right. Well, I saw a lot of
I
that in
mean-
Canada during the pandemic. I saw a lot of that. But, did that just start during the pandemic and now it's still going on?
I think
Or
you've seen that during the pandemic because it's
started
such a
during the
problem.
pandemic.
started during
It's
the pandemic.
and all these problems, the social problems came out during the pandemic, right?
Sorry, I got a comment here. Buying Dominican Republic. Hola, the world ends today for half of America. Mentally, if you allow it to get to you, yes,
Yeah, we
it's
can't let
true.
that happen, though.
But listen, America's still the greatest, one of the greatest nations in the world. It has its issues, but believe me, if people don't like America as a superpower, I invite you to see China. Or I invite you to see Russia. Let them be on top of you, and then you can see how Venezuela and Cuba is. So, it's not quite that bad. But I do understand, that it's very, I mean, I understand we're American. The two of us are Americans, and you're our neighbor up there, but you can't even see the news. I mean, it's so bad. They probably, I'm sorry, the elections in Canada have been canceled. You got like pirate stuff, like back in the 80s in the behind the Iron Curtain. Tovarish, tell me, what are the Americans doing? We cannot see the news. They have cut off Facebook. look. It's messed up. And when in Canada, I can understand why Canadians leave is because, like in Canada during the pandemic, bro, they taped off the clothing area and the suit. What does COVID and buying a pair of shorts have to do? Well, not shorts because you guys buy coats, buy big better coats. What does that have to do with it? So I could understand that, and I didn't know. I learned something recently which I didn't know. Someone who lives in Puerto Plata is Canadian. Told me that Canadians cannot live in the United States because if they live there, they can only stay 6 months minus 1 day. Otherwise, they get a huge fine. And if they have like residency in the U.S. or whatever, they have to pay double taxes or whatever. So that's the reason why so many Canadians come everywhere. But because the guy was like, yeah, I'd rather be in Vero Beach, Florida, but I'm here because of that.
Well, that's interesting because that's true. I don't know a lot of Canadians
I
in America.
I can tell you on that topic because I worked there. I worked
Yeah.
there as a Canadian on a TN visa, right? TN is a type of visa that Canadians get when they actually go to work in
So it's a
the
working
United
visa,
States, right?
yeah.
So you get your social security number from the government, and that's it. You can work. What is important to do if you don't want to be double taxed, because you will be double taxed if you do that, is important to resign your residency, not the citizenship, but your residency from Canada, right? Else you'll have to pay because, for example, in Canada, your residency considers if you have a driver's license in Canada, if you have some type of an address, be it a property that you rent or you own, you're considered a resident. So, for example, U.S. and Canada being so close, you don't have to resign. You can drive with the same driver's license. So a lot of people don't know that if they're not relocated with a corporation, they just get a job, they do that, and then eventually the government will find out that you actually made some money in the United States.
And they will come in the night
they
and
will
crash
come
you.
And they will come
yeah.
and get you. And they will come and get you eventually. Not in the first year and the 2 year, but eventually they'll come
They'll
and
let you get comfortable.
for the money.
I did not realize Canada's like that.
And I mean,
really
besides
didn't.
like Justin Bieber and Alan Thicke and a couple of stars, right? There's no
Yeah.
real like I know I grew up in Queens, New York, right?
Right.
The most diverse place on planet Earth. This is known, right? And now that I think about it, and up until this moment, I've never thought about it. I never knew a Canadian. I've never known one Canadian.
I actually met a lot while traveling, but not in the States. So
Because they
that's
can't
interesting. I
be-
didn't
right,
know
because
that.
they can't be-
They
they-
can't really
Yeah,
be
you,
there.
you do have some, and
Yeah.
it's actually the process of getting a green card and then move yourself towards a U.S. citizenship is not so easy. It's very complicated. You need to follow certain rules because Canadians do get 6 months. You can stay 6 months minus 1 day, not to get punished in
How
your
quickly
country.
can you come back?
Well, I drive. I mean, my top speed was within the limits. So
You're
it took
lagging.
me-
Don't
yeah, no,
incriminate.
within the limits.
being
Mindful
You're
of
being
the questioning
recorded.
this
within
guy over
limits.
here.
Within limits.
Don't do a crime around him.
Within limits. Within
He's gonna
limits.
snitch on
How you
himself.
doing?
Within limits, I made it in about 6 hours.
He's about to
From
become
New
a
York
rapper
City,
right
New York
now.
City, yeah.
From New York
Snitching
City,
on himself right
from
now.
New York City to Montreal. Right, so
Wow.
so it's fairly quick and it's easy and it's nice. A flight is an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
So it's very easy for people to move around between the borders. That's why it's
That's
a lot of
interesting.
people don't get.
Now, in hindsight,
the
all of this
citizenship.
could have been solved for Canadians, for you guys. You know how?
How?
If you guys would have just conquered an island in the Caribbean a long time ago, and you would have had your own outpost. Look, the French have it, the Dutch have it, we have the
have one.
Keys,
Yeah.
and we have
guys
the
are
Keys, and
forgetting
we got
one thing.
Florida, right?
we have
so
Florida.
we got everybody's got their share. You guys missed out on the action.
Guys, you're forgetting one thing. We're still under the Queen. We still have a prime minister. We don't have a president. So we're
That
still
is
under the
true.
Queen.
Canada's weird,
So-
man.
No, you're under the King now, eh?
Well,
See,
King.
I keep up with freaking events.
Oh, that's right.
You've
There's
been
not a
going a
queen,
long
there's a
time,
king
Johnny.
now.
Things
Oh,
have
and
changed.
right, under the King. You're right, under the King. But it's just for so long, it's an expression. So we're still under the United Kingdom rule, right? Under England's rule.
I did not know that.
No,
I mean, I know you guys have.
I thought
ties.
you guys had. You're not independent from England. You don't.
Well,
have
no, you don't have a president. You have a prime minister. We're independent. Look, it's not
Do
like
you have
that.
an Independency Day
There-
in Canada?
You have Canada Day and you have different provinces days, right? But there's no such thing as an Independence Day because you guys in the United States had an Independence War, but in
Yeah.
Canada you never had that, right?
Now that I thought about it, no, they never had. May I invite you to beer, bacon, and bullets?
Yeah.
It works wonders
Yeah.
for
I
freedom.
thought you guys were just coming along with us. I thought you
Sorry,
guys
today
were
we're
with
having
us,
like
yeah.
a
You know
real
what I mean?
American. Phew! Woke up in the morning looking for napalm.
So yeah, we'd love. I mean, Canada would love to have an island over here, right? Somewhere in the Caribbean, nice and
Always
cheap,
choose violence.
cheap
It works.
tickets, no taxation, or same taxation laws and rules. it would be nice, but it's just not.
We'll call it
case.
the maple syrup treaty. You trade maple syrup with them in order to acquire the country and share the wealth. Some countries have oil.
Yeah.
Some countries have gold. We've got maple syrup.
Yeah, let's just. Unfortunately, we can go back to 150, 300 years ago to do that. But yeah.
No, but it's all perspective, because you know what I realized is that it's all how you look at things, right?
Absolutely.
What happens is, like, people from here, and I've spoken, and you live in Higüey, so you live right in the middle of DR, right?
Yeah,
so
I live in the Dominican Republic.
yeah, like he lives in DR, right? So what happens is, like, people from here see the United States as a much better version. I mean, to be fair, you get everything free when you're poor there, so there's that benefit, right? Here you don't get any of that, but people coming with money from there see the DK freedom that we have here as something that they really want to have. You know what I mean? Like, the people from there want what they have here, and the people from here want the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, like, most Dominicans that I know ask me, not anymore because, I've been here for a while, but when I first got here, like, why don't you want to go back to America? Why don't you want to go back to America? And, I have my reasons. I'm still learning Spanish, so it was hard to, kind of explain those reasons. But like you said, we all have our own reasons. I mean, he's here for a different reason than why I'm here. You're here for a different reason as well. And I think that's what makes the Dominican Republic so awesome. I mean, it's its own melting pot, There's all the expats, and then Dominicans are here for their own reasons as well, because Dominicans aren't stuck here. They can travel. They can move other places. It's maybe a little bit more difficult than an American or a Canadian, but they can do it. And sometimes it's too expensive, but they can still do it.
And I mean, when it comes to, like, immigration, the Dominican Republic is usually, like, in the top 3, I think, or 4 for visas approved for the United States. Sure. For a small island of like 11 million or 12 million people, those are huge stats. So in theory, you're not as stuck as some places. There are a lot of people that can't get out of their countries. Here, it's not that bad. People can't.
Right. We're
get
talking
out.
about, like, we didn't know any Canadians in America, right? Well, I definitely knew a lot of Dominicans in America, and I lived in North Carolina. So
Right, and I grew up in New York. I grew up in DR. That was like,
actually, I knew them in 2 different states, in Virginia as well. So I mean, it's just not that way.
So
with
are
a
you
lot of
saying
other
that
people.
Dominicans have more freedom than Canadians? Oh my God, what's going
Yeah,
on, bro?
that's true.
But conquer an island.
But my question is something I did not know. Well, I lived in New York City for some odd 8 years, right? Which is
8
a
years?
lot.
I didn't
8
know
years,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
8 years. That's where I worked, and before I moved out from the banking system and so on. But in New York, I've seen a huge Dominican community, right? I did not see that in the southern, like past South Carolina, like Miami. Is there something that is it something like people do not want to go there? Do they prefer New York or something?
I can explain.
For some,
You can
for
probably
some,
explain
for
better
some,
than me,
yeah,
but I'll
for some
throw
reason.
this out there. From what little I know is that people in general like to go other places where they're going to know other people, right? So once a large number of people start going to one place, then more people are going to follow.
So it's just a
You
community
and I
thing,
are
yeah.
a little bit different,
Right,
man, and,
right.
and him too. Like, we came to a place where there's not a huge community. We're building a community, and we all have our own communities. But like,
Yeah.
I came here by myself,
Right.
So I'll explain to you how, from my experience, what I've seen, right? So at one point, I think it was probably in the 70s, 60s to 70s, Dominicans left to New York. New York City is the #1 natural place because it is the center of the freaking planet, right? I don't care what anybody says. It is the center of the world, right? New York. And if people are going to immigrate from anywhere in the world, one of the first places they're going to immigrate to and build a community is New York. They might have other communities. The Persians went over to, to LA or whatever, to California. You have the Filipino, when you have the Asian communities that are, even though you have them in New York, you have bigger Asian communities, I think, in the San Diego and the West because they're right near coming in, right? So Dominicans made it to New York. Now, what happened? There was a natural progression of you're in New York and you're in the city, you're in the hustle. Then I know a lot of Dominicans that moved to the Carolinas, they moved down south. Slower way of life that they're used to here, and usually better pay, more organized, people that are looking away to get from the grimy hustle and bustle because, the city, when they move into these places, they moved into the hoods, Washington Heights. I mean, violent, there's the hood, the Bronx, the hood. And what I've also seen what Dominicans have done is, and I explained this on another show, they basically, if you're Puerto Rican, watch your back. Because wherever you have a community, they come in and take your community and they kick you out. I'm not even joking. If you know New York City, right, the Dominicans started in Washington Heights, right? Then they merged into Brooklyn, the Bronx, South Bronx, the Bronx. Yo, that was Puerto Rico. That was, baby, Brooklyn, Graham Avenue, all of that. That was Puerto Rico, que nunca dejaré de amarte. No more cuchifrito, now we have mofongo. You know, everything changed. Because that's what they do. They go in, they take over, and they expand, and they expand. Then when they make money, they expand to the suburbs, right? Because if you're doing well, it's like being here. You're in Villamella, you're going to go to Piantini, you're going to go to somewhere nice. You're in Santiago, right? You're going to get out of Cienfuegos, and you're going to go to Gurabo, or you're going to go somewhere else where it's a little bit better. So they do the same thing in the United States. Now, obviously, like he said, they want to be around their own people, right? And then what also happens in major cities, I don't know enough about Florida. Miami-Dade is DR, PR, Venezuela, Colombia, everything, right? But in New York, what also happens, you have to understand, New York being a blue liberal, very, very nice state, it gives people lots of stuff free. So when you know your family members, like I know a lot of people from here whose grandmothers are on free health care, live in the housing projects, getting everything taken care of. I know people here who are surgeons and they're doctors, and they have their mom on government housing in New York City, getting everything free. So when a place gives you everything free, right? Like if you're here, you're making money, you're doing what you have to do, cool. But send your relatives to the United States so they can get everything free and they don't become a burden financially for you here. And New York City is great for that. You go to any hood and the supermarket Wednesday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a party. Everybody's getting plátanos, everybody's chilling, people out on the street, nobody's working. Now, if you go to a regular working class neighborhood, like here, go to Punta Cana Village, right? And I'll tell you, in Punta Cana Village, from 9 o'clock in the morning to like 6:37 at night, there's nobody there. Everybody's working, right? Yep. So it's a different thing. They give you a lot of benefits. There are tons of benefits. You get food stamps, you get free housing, you got Section 8. I have a real estate office in New York. When I used to do rentals, I don't do rentals anymore there, but when we used to do rentals, I used to get 20 Section 8 calls a day. Everybody got their voucher from the government that wants to get it. So it is a benefit, right? You think about it, and you can go there, you can work. A lot of people work off the books. They send money back to their countries. The remesas, that's where it's all coming from. But then as they start to do well, they move into the suburbs. They want a better life. I know guys who are doing like bread truck routes and stuff like that, because that's where the good life, the city's where you start. For most people, the cities where you start, and then once you're making money, you branch off to the other places, and then you build a nice upper middle class life. You get your jet ski on the lake in the Carolinas. Every Dominican person that I know that lives in South Florida is never coming back to the Dominican Republic. I'm going to tell you that right now. The people that want to come back and they want to buy their apartments here and they want to move, if you really look at the clients that we deal mostly with expat clients, but I know a lot of people that deal with Dominican clients, and I know some of them. If you guys really pay attention, the Dominican clients that are buying, I want to buy an apartment in my country, I want to go back to my country. Okay, very good. They're from the north. They're all from they're
Massachusetts, New Jersey.
Right.
Yeah.
Once you hit like the South, like once you hit like the Carolinas, Georgia, and especially South Florida, if you're in Florida, your jet ski's cheaper, your car is cheaper, your mortgage is cheaper, even because of the lower interest rates and the lower down payments. So those people are not coming back to the Dominican Republic because they have a really good quality of life. So they might have started off in New York, they might have started off in the barrios, but they worked their way hard up to somewhere and they got a good life and they're not coming back here. But that's why they're in those places, because you start a community, right? Like I'm Romanian. We're in Ridgewood, Queens, some of us in Sunnyside, and that's it. And usually when you come over from Romania back then, now now we're in Spain.
But you know what makes me think? Because you said it's a democratic state. I completely agree. You get a lot of stuff for free, and it's nice. But kind of comes back to the elections, what's happening right now, right? So let's say the Republicans or Trump takes the White House. Will that, or is there a possibility of that changing and people be in massive exodus from those blue states? For example, for some reason, I know that's very improbable that New York goes red from blue. Very improbable. But in case it does, what's going to happen to those benefits? What's going to happen to...
I can answer that. We were on the red before. We were on the red multiple times, and it never went away. We were on the Bush. We were on the Trump.
In America, once something starts...
So it's not retroactive?
No. That's just bureaucracy. Once something's implemented and people make money from it, it never gets taken away.
There's no way that the advocacy groups. One thing that I've learned that in Latin America that's different than the United States is the United States has a lot of advocacy groups, and you got politicians that want to get reelected, right? We're talking about on the government level, Senate and stuff like that. Sure. And those guys will give you tokens, right? I call it tokens, right? There is no way that they would be able to cut that. I don't care if the state is red, blue, white, and green, right? There's no way they can cut that. The advocacy, the news, the media, it would be a natural disaster. People be out in the streets, right? So those programs stay, and the red states have them too. I think Florida has programs like that as well. It's just that what happens is people of certain ethnicities, when they start a small community in a place, they end up growing off of that community, and that's just how it works. If you've got 10 Filipinos that go to one place, next thing you know, you got 30 Filipinos and 50, 100, 200. Like, look, Russians, right? So the Russians from Russia ended up in South Brooklyn. Everybody goes to Brooklyn. I like to go
Brighton
to Brooklyn.
Beach.
Brighton Beach, baby. Wolf. Everybody has Lexus, Mercedes, or BMW, right? Now, if you go into Rego Park, Queens, that's where you had all the Russian-speaking Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, all the stands, right? Minus Afghanistan. All the stands were in Rego Park, and they all spoke Russian because they were all at that area, because somewhere along the line, a couple of families went there and told the other families coming to come there. And that's kind of how immigration works, right?
Absolutely.
And that's how it is. Like, you look at the Irish that came in, and then they ended up working their way down to the Appalachians, and those are the modern-day rednecks that we know now. If you really think about it, like country, like the music, the country, like the Southern drawl, I watched this thing. The Southern drawl in the United States actually comes from Irish and Scottish talk. And it's just an evolution of the accent from Scotland and Ireland that went down going that way because they traveled down that Appalachian route, right?
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all the hillbillies, that's what a redneck is. Redneck's actually Irish and Scottish. It's actually Irish and Scottish, yeah. People don't know that, but yeah. So it just, people follow a certain path, and we see that with immigration always. And then you see it here also, right?
Yeah, like I wouldn't. There's great places up north and other places in the Dominican Republic, and I love going there. But because I'm in one place, I'm going to suggest that anybody that wants to come here to come where I am, because I know them too. So it's a level of influence as well. You know, it's your somebody that's already there is saying, here, come here because I know the area. I know where to eat, not where to buy your cars and all this sort of information.
I agree.
That's
yeah.
why Mario is
Exactly.
such
That's the key word,
a great person to know,
Right.
because you come to a place where you don't understand the culture, you don't understand where to do things, and he's this great resource to say, hey, Mario, where do I buy a car?
So the key word is information. Information
And comfort for
And
language.
comfort,
Comfort
yeah.
for language.
Comfort.
Right.
It's comfort for language. And people like you, Mike, I think you came here alone, right? I mean, I came here alone. And so that's an uncomfortable thing to do. But I don't know a lot of other people that did that. That's not very common, And so, well, you did that too, okay?
I have mental problems.
Yeah.
I just realized our names, all three of them start with M. So it's
Yeah.
triple M.
Oh, wow.
Triple M.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
That's
realized
true.
that.
That's true. But most people won't do that, man. Especially if you have
Yeah.
a family too. It's you're not going to really relocate an entire family to somewhere where you don't know. Some people will, but it's not as common. Okay,
It's
so you
also-
want to know the information. You want to know what's going on. Who's got boots on the ground and who knows what's going on there.
And I think relocating a family is much more difficult than relocating on your own. Right.
Especially when you have no resources, like we talked about. We
Yeah.
get nothing here, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And then what I thought about that is like when you come here, you come to Punta Cana, right? Let's just say, or you come to Las Terrenas, Sosúa, Cabarete, what is it, Valladolid, wherever there are expats, right? This is why, if you notice the migration pattern of foreigners coming to the Dominican Republic, they usually choose a beach town. The ones that end up, like I started in Santiago here, which was my own story that I did on the first show, how I ended up, because I grew up with the culture here since I was 15 years old. So I ended up with friends. I ended up starting in DR, Santiago. Most 95% of the expats are not going to do that because they won't know how to, like, you imagine, like, you show up to Santiago right now, or the middle of Santo Domingo, right? You and your family, hola. Like, okay, what's next?
Right.
How do I get an apartment?
Exactly.
Where's a supermarket? How do I get a taxi? How do I get health insurance? They don't know how to do that. But when you come around people with your own community, now here, it's a great example of that. This community was really small. If you guys came here 10, 12, 13, 15 years ago, there was a handful of
What,
little
here-
expats.
here in Punta Cana?
Yeah, there was
Okay.
nothing here. Then it expanded because more people came. That's what you see in places like La Terrenas that's growing, in all these places, because that's a huge thing. That's why when people from here go, where do they go? Where they have their people. Because you know what? You go to New York, right? And I was talking about that today. You're in New York and you can live in a Dominican neighborhood and you can have Tres Golpes, you can have Chicharron, you can have Banda Real down there and everything. You know what I mean? Scott, let's see. Scott, Canadians also pay more in property tax default, at least in Florida. We're not under British rule. It's ceremonial. And there were some negotiations to make Turks and Caicos part of Canada. Choose violence always. That's why they're not yours right now. No.
It's ceremonial. What does he mean by that?
I have no clue.
Ceremonial, I can understand what it means. It's almost
Well, I
like a
understand the
custom.
word.
Like it's a
Yeah.
custom. It's almost like, yes, we're still part of we're independent, but they're kind of like, yeah, we're still cool with you guys. You know what I mean?
No,
Right,
I
because
think
you
I
guys
think
have your
every time, well, at least when the Queen was there, okay, I haven't lived in Canada for a while now, just
Okay.
visiting back and forth. But last time I know that when the Queen came over with a visit, her visit into Canada costed taxpayers about 30 million Canadian dollars. So I don't know how ceremonial that is, but
Sounds like
that's
a big ceremony,
that's
yeah.
like a big ceremony, right? So to me, it's not only on paper, as they say, right? To me,
Right,
there's
right,
still
right. It's
there's still direct
honored by
ties.
Queen
There's
and
still
yeah.
direct ties.
But
to
you guys
the,
do
to
have
the country.
your own currency. You guys
Well, yeah,
aren't
you have your own
underneath
currency.
the
Yeah,
British
you have
pound?
to. You have to have your own currency. You have to have your own government, right? Because a lot of decisions will not be taken overseas, over the ocean, right? It's much simpler to
Absolutely.
form a government on place and then send the money or the royalties. Why do you think they are called royalties? The royalties, the money that you give back to royalties.
Wait, you guys still have to like get things approved from England?
To my knowledge, yes.
I think that's what he meant by ceremonial. I don't think that you guys do have to do that.
When it's ceremonial when it doesn't have to
Well, if
come
you
out
guys
from
are
your
if
pocket.
you're still
you know what
watching,
I mean?
Scott, let us know.
Yeah,
'cause we'd
let us
like to
know,
Like,
definitely.
does Canada
I'm
still,
so interested.
Do you guys
and
still give
update
money
me.
every month? Like, do you guys still pay rent to England or something like that?
So
No, seriously.
royalties are called royalties for a reason, because you give them back to royal
royalties.
families, right, across whatever whoever is under which can I say
Remember,
jurisdiction?
you don't have
I
to
don't
be in
know.
Boston to have a tea party.
So we just don't know then. We just don't know exactly how the Canadian government works. So
Yeah,
that's
I
okay.
don't know much about him. I learned more about Canada from South Park than anything else because
There's
I
this
never
show
understood.
called there's this show called Letterkenny. Have you ever seen that show?
No.
It's very, very Canadian, but they're just like hanging out in the country the whole time. I thought Canadians were like super relaxed.
What's the
and,
name?
like,
Letterkenny?
Letterkenny. It's set in Saskatchewan.
I never knew much about Canadians growing up in New York. It's really weird. I
You-
never noticed it
you
until
know the
talking
sh-
about it today because they just were never around.
You
I
guys,
mean, I
yeah.
ran into people from freaking Mongolia that I didn't run into people from Canada in New York City.
No,
which
no, no.
was
You guys
super
should
weird.
watch Trailer Park Boys.
Oh, that's the other one. I love
Yeah,
that show.
that's so-
I love that
That
show.
sounds
You know that-
culturally correct.
You would like that show. You would. You would.
I've never seen it, but yeah, but that's what it is. And then people here, when they come here, that's why they look for communities like ours because they want to be able to feel safe and not get the anxiety. It's very difficult. I mean, I can't imagine. It's like imagine me right now in the heartland of China, and I'm trying to get things done. I'm always like, what am I doing here? And that's why people want to
Well,
come
yeah,
to
you're going to seek out somebody else that's already done it. That's
Right.
already gone through
and people
it.
that help you, companies that help you, people that help you. You know, because if you go to an insurance broker, there are people here that speak English, they speak the language. You know, that's all important. Knowing where and also safety and being able to get around, seeing your own people. What I've noticed is like especially expats that don't speak the language, they want to go to a bar and they want to see somebody doing cover music and rock and roll and things like that. They love that stuff. Like when I was living in Sosúrcal, right there, that was like the number one thing. Everybody's like, I live in real Dominican Republic, but there's a bunch of guys singing rock and roll every weekend at your bar. That's not really very Dominican.
You know what? Also, what I think is that back in time, right, Dominican Republic has been a destination, at least for Canadian, right, retirees to retire somewhere where it's warm, and Florida as well, by the way. So that was and then it kind of grew in because retirees have sons, daughters, and it's generational. And then some people, and with the remote work now that's being possible, you can work remotely, right, from any part of the world. So it kind of
most,
evolved into that, right, starting with retirees going into different parts where it's warmer, from Canada at least, or the northeast of the United States, and now being reinforced. Like, for example, I'll just come into rentals a little bit, my favorite topic here in Punta Cana, rentals.
Yeah.
The amount of people I got this summer, right, this past summer, when it all slowed down in sales and resales, for me at least, I got a lot of people asking me from the northeast coast and Canada for rentals. And now that a lot of people, like, they call them snowbirds, right? Snowbirds that they travel somewhere warm to just pass the winter.
Right, to go through the winter, yeah.
Yeah, and all this is going to be a cycle, right? Renters now, they're not the same as they used to be like 5 years ago. The pandemic changed a lot, right? With the remote work environment and everything. Right now, you can do rentals. By the way, which we are actually, I think, doing very well, right?
We are doing
Mark,
really good,
we're
yeah.
signing a
Killing
contract
it,
with
man.
you. We're killing it. So we
Yeah.
just rented. Within 2 weeks, we just rented, more than half a stock we had in Canada Rock condos there in Canada Bay. So you know what I mean? I mean, the market is like that. So I think
And
that's
people
what it
want
is well, yeah.
people I think right now sometimes if they can't buy right away they just want to rent something and they want to get out
Yeah.
because I think the environment, right, I don't know I forget the word sometimes in English, but it's the not the ambiance. You know, everything that's going on right now, the energy, even in Canada, the United States. There are a lot of people that are not happy with the weather, with what's going. Obviously, the weather's not happy with the cold. Who likes the cold? But I'm saying they're not happy with just what's going on, the energy that's going on, and a lot of people, even if it's not full time, they want to be somewhere else where it's warm, where they can have a cold beer, where they're going to be on the beach, they could be in their pool. They want that at least half a year. I think that's what we're seeing, right?
Yeah, we're seeing that trend. Yeah, and more than half a year for sometimes, because honestly, with I don't know if anyone knows here, but Aerojet just opened up a direct flight from Punta Cana Airport directly to Montreal, right? And I believe I checked it on Google Flights, and it's true, $315. You get yourself a direct ticket. And I think all year long is going to be the same. But the price might move a little bit here
I
and
think
there.
it fluctuates, but yeah.
So put that back up.
Yeah.
So Scott Leckie, thank you, Scott. He explained it. It's not an official power. It's a ceremonial power, and it's a historic connection. And there's basically a rubber stamp. It's never been denied. Never will be. Okay, so that kind of it's kind of like
So like the Queen said, you can.
right.
You can.
Yeah,
I approve
I
what you
approve.
want to do.
And
Okay.
they can't kind of deny. It's like first right of refusal on the condominium. Turn everything into a real estate thing, right?
Yeah.
If you deny it, you have to buy us. But
All right. Thank you, Scott, for explaining. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks, Scott.
we started off as an American show and went on Canada. You see
Yeah.
how,
Oh, you know.
We don't know where it's going to go.
how the flow of things go. But yeah, and I think, a lot of it is also, it makes it easier to adjust. I mean, you guys, right? When you came here, did you speak Spanish?
No, I didn't even feel comfortable saying hola.
And what about you?
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
¿Qué hora es? Lunes, azul.
Right.
You know what? On my end, the French helps because of the the structure of the language. It's very simpler, so to help. But indeed, it needs a lot of practice and will to
Yeah.
do so. How many people I know live here for years? Expats, they don't really speak Spanish in this environment. And I think
if I could suggest one thing,
Yeah.
it would be to learn Spanish to live here. I
Learn
would
any
definitely say
language of the country that
learn
you're gonna
and I think you
Spanish,
save
yeah.
a lot of money too if you speak Spanish. here. I
Listen,
mean,
like you will.
Yeah.
Because there's certain, it opens up more doors and you can look for deals and different things. Like if you're looking for only somebody that's going to speak English to you, then you're limited to what you can do. And that's just how it is.
My father never learned English, and he worked for 30 plus years as a doorman in New York City, and he just never got ahead to where he was supposed to. He never got really promoted, nothing, because he didn't learn the language. And that has taught me that to learn the language, and not only that, I take it a next step. Obviously, listen, if I went to Bangkok, I learned Thailand. I learned Thai. If I had to go to China, I would learn Chinese. Like
Yeah.
whatever it takes, I would do it. I have zero tolerance for not learning the language because it makes your life 1,000,000 bazillion times, 1,000,000 bazillion times better. And it also, like, I couldn't imagine being somewhere and frustrated and I can't communicate with people. How could you not communicate with people? I would have anxiety attacks through the roof because I couldn't. And the next step that I took it is, even though, like, I mean, I'm still learning Spanish, obviously. I'm not 100% because I learned on the street. And so I've never even, like, even in English, I've never learned what nouns, pronouns, all that crap is because I'm my
Like
natural.
learning Spanish, I realized how little I know that about English. right?
Correct,
Like how
correct.
little I knew about the grammar of English.
Because English is my second language. Spanish is my
Oh, that's
third
true.
language.
Yeah.
Right. It's not my first language. So, but what I've also started doing is picking up accents of the different countries that I travel in. So the next step is after you do that, you pick up, even in this country, there are different accents. The R, the L, the I. So which one are you talking? Like you know what I
Depends
mean?
on the north or this
Right,
area.
because
Yeah.
because it depends. Because once you start to learn Spanish and you speak in Spanish well, then it's like which accent is your comfortable accent that you speak in, right? How do you finish? Do you finish in the R, the L, or the I? One of those you're gonna finish. You know.
I think
The
even
American
in,
accent.
even in Punta Cana here, we have 3 types or 4 or 5
I'll finish
types.
it in red, white, and blue.
We have 4 or 5 types of different accents, right? Because you have
Here in Punta
Spaniards
Cana?
from Spain
Yeah,
here, right?
yeah,
You have the Dominicans from here, then you have the Haitian population,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone has a different
The Haitian accent, all you have to learn is patron. Everything's patron.
Patron.
But you have different ones, and I've learned that even when I travel to, like, different countries, I try to change my accent to learn their accent. And my friend, like, in Colombia, right, Andres, pues, if he's watching this, he's gonna be like, because I'll go to, like, in Colombia, I'll try to talk like them, and he's like, yo, bro, just talk the way you do, like a Dominican. I said, but you said you don't like the way that I talk. So now I'm talking the way they talk. You freaking guy, what are you doing? Right? But I try to change my accent a little bit so I don't sound so weird.
Yeah.
Because my accent sounds super weird. Like I go to Panama and I go to Colombia. And in those places, my accent is super weird. Like to them, I sound like El Alfa. Like everybody's like, oh, you're Dominican, you got to be from the Dominican Republic with the accent. So I try to change it. I still haven't pegged the Panamanian one, but they say a certain thing like choza, correcto, and like they say weird things. Like when you're like, excuse me, they're like proprio, and I'm like, what? Okay, so it just sounds super weird. And then in Medellin, they have not only Colombian accent, but they have an extremely like particular. There's like Cibao here, por favor, like that. So if you do that, it's super weird. Canada has a governor general. We're getting a Canadian class here today, which is the former connection to the British monarch. She cost us a fortune, but once again, it's formally said he costs. I am the king as I am. I first stayed there almost 40 years ago. Came, I got a job teaching English. For right refusal, never exercise. Okay, got it. First right refusal, but never exercise. There you go. I got it right. I understand. You did. You got to talk to me in real estate terms. Everything. I understand percentages in real estate terms. You apply that to anything, and I definitely understand it. But yeah, one thing I tell people here is, when you come here, is learn Spanish, but try to do it in, like, once you learn the basic stuff, right? Don't worry about what do you call the conjugation or whatever.
No.
Like, right? Like the verbiage
And don't
stuff.
worry about the past tense and future
Focus
tense.
more on the accent. Because that's going to, and I started doing that too. Like, my friend laughs at me when I do it. But like when I go to Colombia, I'm like, ¿qué más pues? I don't know. And then I got to get used to saying it, because to me, that sounds so weird. You know what I mean? It's just that the way they say it, because it's.
Well, I've only been learning Spanish now for like 20 months, okay? So I don't know that much about the language. You guys know much better Spanish than I do, okay? But it seems to me that in Spanish, the accent is much more important than it is in English. Like, I don't go to different parts of America and not understand what they're talking.
Unless you're in deep south, they're like Yankee.
But I still but I still understand what they're saying.
I'll tell you a story, right? My personal story. I had to learn.
I'm sorry. Somebody told me the same thing. Learn the basic words, but then immediately start learning the accent, because people won't understand what you're saying.
Exactly.
Because like, I'll give you an example. My friend is in Colombia. He speaks Spanish really well because he's half Colombian, half Puerto Rican. But because he's got this New York swang, whatever accent, everywhere he goes, ¿de dónde tú eres, Andrés? Yo soy de aquí. No, tú no eres de aquí, porque tú no hablas como nosotros, pues. And so so his accent is constantly a barrier the minute they talk to people. But your accent can also change things. Like here, you get pulled over by the cops. Hey, dímelo, ¿qué es lo que comando? ¿Cómo te puedo ayudar? And then, okay, well, that is clear. But if I was like, disculpa, comandante, ¿qué está pasando aquí? Then they're like, all right, 2,000 pesos for you, my friend. Keep talking, it goes up.
No, I was going to tell you is that, like, I've had to learn French from scratch, right? And I went to high school and everything. It took me 5 years to finish high school, and then so on and so on. But up until I was immersed into the surrounding, meaning my colleagues speaking French. I was 16, 17. It was my first job, like a pizzeria. I had to make pizzas, deliver pizzas,
I did that
Up
too.
until I immersed myself into that, I had not speaking a word of French, like normally, like a fluent conversation. That's what happened. Now you living in Higüey, I think you get that.
No,
But for example,
I go
imagine-
through my days speaking Spanish.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's not good Spanish, but it
But
is
it is Spanish.
But that's a
But
start.
imagine you come here as an expat. You're surrounded by expats, right?
Yeah.
Mostly, and a lot of people here speak English comparatively to the other parts
They
of
do.
the
Yeah, for
VR
the tourist
because of
industry,
the
yeah.
hotel, the
Yeah.
tourist industry, the airport, and so on and so on. So I think my how can I say it? My opinion and my suggestion is that try to immerse yourself into the community who speaks
100%.
Spanish and
Yeah.
just practice
You
and
gotta
don't be
do it,
afraid
yeah.
and to just go for it.
And part of it is that also, like, TV shows, music, because it's more than just learning the language. The thing is, when you move to a country, right, it's different if you're just visiting. All right, if you're just visiting, you don't care. You come here, you go to for a month or whatever. Who cares? You're just getting by. You have seen Presidente on the beach, and that's it, right? But what you have to do, you have to understand everything. Like, how can I put it? In each country that I go to, even though they're Spanish-speaking countries, right? Like, if I go to Colombia, I know about vallenato. I mean, I grew up with that also, so it's a little different. But I know the music, I know the food, I know what they like. I go to Panama, I'm learning about their culture, their food. What makes them tick and what makes them say things and how they respond to certain things, right? Now, you're not going to learn that staying in your comfort zone.
No.
Even in my house, like my girlfriend and I watch like Mexican telenovelas. Don't ask me why. They're great, like La Reina
we're
del
watching
Sur and all
Colombian
that
shows
stuff.
in my house. I don't know why, but yeah, we are.
Because it's great TV.
It is
And-
good,
But
yeah.
what you're doing is you're constantly starting to pick up different things, and you're learning different words. And what does that mean? And what does that mean? Because Spanish, just so you guys understand, Spanish or Castellano, whatever, that's a whole nother language. What we're learning here in every country in Latin America America, we're learning a version. It's like almost like a version of English, right? Of British English, right? You've got the Scots, you got the Irish, you got all the versions of the United States that all talk differently. And then, all through like Australians, good eye, my eye, what crack, so you have all of that. So we're learning a specific dialect.
It's very specific, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but like I've been around my mother-in-law's boyfriend this past weekend. I was telling you he's Colombian, okay, and I didn't know any Spanish before I came down here, which really isn't a good thing because there's a lot of Latino people in America. We should be learning Spanish in America, but that's a whole other thing. And I could not understand anything that he's saying, and everybody around me is like, why can't you understand what he's saying? Because he's speaking in a way that you should be able to understand, because people around me know that they need to change how they speak just a little bit so the gringo can understand what I'm saying. Right. But I could not understand what he was saying. It's because of his accent and just the inflectuations of his words and his word choice.
Okay, so
So
question for you.
I really only know Dominican Spanish.
So
I don't
question
know,
for you,
I don't
where is
know
he from?
Spanish.
What part of Colombia is he from?
Bogota.
Ah, okay, so he's going to have that slang because
Yeah,
I
he's
find
got slang. He sings. It's like he's singing when he's talking to me.
and they have a different thing. Like people in Colombia sometimes, especially depending on how it is. If they're like executives, right? I've been in like a Zoom where it's like a building. People that bought apartments in a building. For my friend, I jumped in on a Zoom, and I could understand everything 100%. It was more clear than here, right? But this was because they were business people. Now, in the same Medellin, I have a driver that we've been using for years, right?
Yeah.
And Carlos starts to talk to me, and bro, it's like, ¿qué más pues, Mario? Bien, pero bien. And I'm like, I don't understand shit. Sometimes I'm just like, okay. Because I can't understand their choice of words and the way they balance it out. And that's what it is. We're learning, wherever you go, guys, if you move here, you're going to learn the dialect from here. That's the most important thing, learning the dialect.
And I don't know about other Spanish-speaking countries, but I know here, like from what I've been told, that Dominican Spanish it's a lot of little sayings as well and made up words. Like they just make
They're
words
all like
up
that.
and-
They're
yeah.
all like that.
Is that all like
yeah.
that? Okay.
Sally, this, that. Everyone has their own. Like in Panama, it's really weird. Like if something's nice, they'll call it pretty. And it's really weird to see a big guy like this and be like, oh, yeah, está pretty. And you're like, what the? Like it's super weird. So they all do it. But what it is, they all have, and this verbiage. It was funny. I listened to corridos, a lot of corridos. Like that's really big all over Latam right now, right? And there's one thing where the guy says tracas, and I didn't understand what the hell tracas meant. And he says it at the beginning of every song, right?
Yeah.
Traca, and then I'm like, what is he? I asked somebody from Mexico, and I understood when I asked her what it meant. That tracas is just kind of like, dale, chale, wait.
What, it's a Mexican word?
Yeah,
It's a Mexican
but
slang?
and it's said in the north of Mexico. So if you in corridos, they'll say it. It's like tracas, what the fuck, like that. Yeah,
okay,
that's how
okay.
they'll say it, right? But that doesn't exist here. So if you don't know that word, like I just said it to you, and your face was like,
Nah,
what? I've never heard it.
yeah.
But because I listen to that music, I hear those words, right? And they use a lot of. Every country has its own verbiage, and certain things can mean different things. For example, like here, if somebody says, "Ay, pero tú estás guapo," like your guapo means like you're upset. But in other countries, guapo means you're handsome.
Wait a second. I learned in Duolingo that means you're handsome.
Exactly
No,
the same.
no.
No, I know.
Estoy
I know,
guapo
but here,
contigo.
you can't say it.
And that's
Yeah,
like, what, you're pretty with me? No. No, so you also, it's very important. And the way people treat you, I might have mentioned this before, but one thing I learned one time, I went to one Spanish class in Sosua, right? One day when I first got there, bought my apartment, whatever. And I was talking to this Spanish teacher. She was from Spain. And she was the one that told me, she said, Mario, you have to learn the dialect. She goes, I speak Spanish, natal, like from birth, right? But people here take advantage of me. They overcharge me. They're always trying to screw me over because the minute she opens her mouth, Tío, joder. You know what I mean? Like, she was talking like a Spaniard, right? So you can, ¿cuánto costa el taxi? No, whatever. They knew that she was a foreigner. So it's not just about speaking Spanish, but it's about being
Speaking
como
the dialect.
platanao, right?
Yeah.
And then if you go to Colombia and you speak like, hola, ¿qué más? And you sound weird, they're going to be like, that's a freaking guy. But if you start singing like the way that they're singing, I've been practicing that because I go a lot to Colombia. I'm going to go a lot again because Andres makes me go there. I am forced, in case my girlfriend's listening, I'm forced to go to Colombia. I have to go. What do you call it? But yeah, it's just like I'm trying to practice because since I'm out and about and I hang out with different class of people there, I have to understand what they're saying. And I also don't want to, like, I don't mind if it's like regular friends, like, the way I talk.
Yeah.
But if I'm around the upper enchilada, what do you call it, of Colombia, I don't want to sound. It's gonna sound weird, but I don't want to sound the way I sound here because they're not gonna. They're gonna see me differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you wanna be included, but you also just like want that. You don't want to fight for that respect, like another thing to fight through. You know,
That's why
you just want to at least talk like they talk.
I slow when alcohol's not involved. What do you call it? I slow it up. I try to kind of.
You focus
They're
on
very,
how you're talking.
they're on the S a lot, you know.
Yeah, they use
Pues
the
bien,
S's.
vamos por allá. They speak like I don't know, like they speak like that. So I'm trying to practice that because like if I'm around some really like business people, they won't appreciate. That's a nice word I'm trying to say. They won't appreciate my accent from here, right? Because this is a costeño accent. They call it costeño, caribeño, whatever. You know, like it's a different, it's a harder accent here. So if you're around like Bogota, Medellin, if you go to Mexico City, if you go certain places, your accent might not always be welcome.
Well,
I'm trying to put it in a nice
even
way.
from
Yeah.
before, from like the years before, right? Different decades, different centuries. Your vocabulary and your accent always showed which society,
No, that's
which
true, too. That's
layer of
interesting, yeah.
society you belong to. So it's going to give you a sense of belonging, right? Be it to one part of society which is well seen, right? You're rich, you're successful, or it will give you something like from a barrio, you know, that is completely
And
la
yes.
lingua, el idioma de la calle.
La
Right.
idioma de la calle,
And
sí.
and that's something I struggle because you know what's funny? I was in Colombia one time and I asked this girl, right? Because I noticed in Colombia they always say acá, and here we say aquí. And I asked her, I said, what's the difference between aquí and acá? She said, well, it's the same thing. I'm doing the Colombian accent in English, so you can get the way she said it to me. She was like, well, it's the same thing, but aquí is for montañeros, basically for campesino. Like, so ever since she said that, I started using acá. I came back from Colombia. Those of you that work with me know, I came back from Colombia like 2 years ago, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, ven acá, acá. I stopped saying aquí as much as I used to say it because that stuck into my head. Like, un montañero. Yo no soy un montañero, coño. You know what I mean? So I was like, I'm going to start saying acá everywhere else, you know? Scott, for me, language learning involves two main things. Shout out to our number one fan on the show, learning, studying, acquiring, picking it up in your environment. Both are important, but the latter is more important. Yeah.
Scott's right. Once again, Scott is right.
Yep. Acquiring it in that. But yeah, so when she said that to me, and she was like, that basically sounds Barial saying aquí instead of acá, I completely started changing the
I
way
use
that
a
I
ka a lot here.
I-
Ben acá.
Yeah, but I'm used to more aquí.
Okay.
Y tú, "Well, por aquí, por allá, and the people talk
That's
that.
what
so-
I hear too, like more aquí.
Aquí.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it
I
has
learned
to
a
do
ka.
with
I learned a ka. Yeah.
yeah, and so but it's the same word, but it's how they say it. So like what I started doing is adjusting the way that I talk, so people could not see me as a person from a direct dialect. I mean, it slips out if you're hanging out with me. If I'm having a couple of drinks, because I remember we were in Medellin one time and we were in Provenza and we were having drinks, a whole bunch of us, and I said, what do you call it? I started saying something, and when I drink, I'm very. If you drank with me in Spanish and stuff, I'm very animated, and I say all kinds of slang and all kinds of stuff. And we're sitting there, there's a bunch of people, and these girls are laughing. They're like, oh! And my friend who's Colombian turns to them and goes, you didn't even understand anything he said right now. And the girls started laughing. Oh, no, we didn't. We didn't understand anything. Only the guys understood me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It was.
I will
super.
say though, in Punta Cana, in this area, as we wrap up, it really offers a great opportunity though to be around people that speak your language. I mean, we have a bunch of different languages, a bunch of different small communities here, and I do love that about coming out here. Yeah, I live in Higüey, but I come out here like multiple times a week to work and to do other stuff, and I love hearing all the different languages and know that if I come out here, I can be in like La Serena or Ikea. And just all of a sudden there'll be somebody speaking English next to me.
Yeah.
That is cool. It is cool because you don't find that in a lot of other foreign nations.
Correct.
By the way, or you have to really seek it out, and it's only one place. But a lot of people do speak other languages here.
It's a big variety.
Yeah, it
of
is.
I agree on that.
Yeah.
With that being said, my fellow Expatagonians, thank you for tuning in again and another great show here. I'll see you guys in 2 and 2. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode and more guests. Thank you guys for being on.
No, thank
Had
you,
a
Mario.
blast.
Thank
I got to
you.
bring you guys back
Yeah, it
on
was
because we
fun.
got a lot
It
more
was
to
fun.
talk about. And lastly, if you can give a shout out to our sponsors, I'd appreciate it. Have a great week. 2 weeks until I see you guys again. Remember, MarioFamaRD.com. Directory, advice, anything you need, you can find it there. Over and out. Merkel. Pew, 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 pew.
Hi everybody, it's your boy Mario Fama RD, aka Yo soy Blanco, pero no soy banco. And yes, it's time. We're finally launching the Mario Fama RD podcast. Now, what's going to be different about this podcast? Well, we're going to take our rose-colored glasses off. We're going to put our real glasses on. and we're going to talk about the hard-hitting subjects that nobody talks about being an expat here in the Dominican Republic and in Latin America in general. We're going to talk about law. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about lifestyles, and everything the Dominican Republic has to offer. The good, the bad, the ugly. Kind of like the Clint Eastwood Spaghetti Western, but here in the Dominican Republic. If you have any questions, we'll answer them for you. We're going to talk about everything that relates to being an expat, not just in Punta Cana, but Santo Domingo, Santiago, the North Coast, the East Coast, West Side, even the West Coast, everywhere. And if you want to be a patrocinador and have your logos up here and sponsor us, then let me know.
Desde Bávaro, el mejor estudio audiovisual del